our last episode, we watched ethnic tensions tear at the seams of Franz Josef's empire. Slavic hopes rose, Croatian frustrations deepened, and the emperor found himself presiding over a powder keg. But even as these storms gathered, Austria-Hungary glittered on the surface. A gilded age was dawning, at least that's what it looked like. From the 1870s through the 1890s, the dual monarchy experienced a burst of economic energy. Railways carved paths through the Alps, connecting Vienna to Budapest, Trieste, and beyond. Ironworks belched smoke across Bohemia and Styria. New industries, textiles, chemicals, machine tools, sprang up. Banks multiplied, credit flowed, stock markets rose. Vienna became one of Europe's grandest capitals, filled with opera houses, cafes, and a thriving intellectual scene. Budapest transformed from a provincial city into a modern metropolis along the Danube. Statistics told a story of progress. Industrial output doubled, grain exports surged, population boomed, wealth grew, at least for some. Foreign observers marveled. Perhaps the Habsburgs had finally found the formula for modern greatness. But numbers can lie. Because while railroads and factories expanded, the empire's politics stagnated. Franz Josef's governance, so effective at treading water, had become an anchor. The emperor was trapped by the dual monarchy's contradictions. He could not reform without offending either Austrians or Hungarians, and he could not appease both without alienating the Slavs. The result was paralysis. In the Austrian parliament, every major nationality had its own party, its own grievances, its own demands. Sessions dissolved into shouting matches. Czechs boycotted in protest. Poles schemed for privileges. German liberals and conservatives bickered endlessly. Laws stalled. Budgets went unapproved. Newspapers mocked the Reichsrat as a circus. In Hungary, the Diet was less chaotic, but no less unjust. Hungarian elites, Magyars, dominated politics and enforced Magyarization, suppressing Slovak, Romanian and Croat culture. Elections were openly rigged. Only a tiny fraction of the population could vote. The illusion of national unity masked a reality of repression. And so, as smokestacks rose, politics sank into deadlock. Franz Josef, now in his 50s and 60s, embodied this contradiction. He still believed that the empire's future lay in modernization, but he refused to break with absolutist habits. He approved rail projects, opened universities, championed technical schools, and admired engineers. Yet he could not tolerate meaningful political change. Every time Parliament threatened to limit his power or grant real rights to minorities, he found ways to stall or dissolve it. He was not a tyrant, but neither was he a true constitutional monarch. He ruled by inertia, by ritual, by the hope that stability would outlast discontent. To many, it seemed to work. A Viennese middle class flourished, celebrating imperial stability with grand balls and electric lights. Jewish entrepreneurs and intellectuals rose to prominence, making Vienna a center of arts and sciences. The secession movement revolutionized art and architecture. Musicians like Brahms and Mahler filled concert halls. On the boulevards of Budapest, grand cafes buzzed with talk of progress. Tram lines zipped along avenues modeled after Paris. Modern sewer systems, telephone networks, and electric streetlights gave the capital a cosmopolitan glow. In Trieste, the empire's main port, shipping boomed. Steamships carried Austrian and Hungarian goods to the Mediterranean and beyond, tying the monarchy into the global economy. But these gleaming cities masked a darker reality in the countryside. The empire's glittering boulevards and roaring train stations spoke of progress, masking the political rot within. But in the cafes of Vienna and Budapest, radical pamphlets began to circulate. Ideas of socialism and anarchism that promised to sweep away the old order. In Galicia, millions of impoverished peasants lived in medieval conditions, farming tiny plots with wooden plows. In Transylvania, Romanian villages languished under Hungarian landlords. In Bosnia, occupied in 1878 but still outside the official empire, ethnic tensions simmered beneath an uneasy military administration. Entire regions felt left behind by the prosperity that dazzled Vienna and Budapest. And these forgotten corners bred anger and revolutionaries. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary's political elite convinced themselves that economic growth would quiet these frustrations. They believed that railways and factories would bind the empire's many nations into a single loyal body. But they underestimated how national consciousness had spread in the same years as industry. Railways moved people and ideas. Newspapers in Czech, Slovak, Serbo-Croatian, Romanian, and Ukrainian carried news of grievances and inspired dreams of independence. Economic progress, instead of healing divisions, often deepened them. Prosperous towns demanded schools in their own languages. Middle-class lawyers and merchants began agitating for more rights. Peasants, exposed to nationalist propaganda, grew resentful of distant German and Magyar rulers. Franz Josef knew this. He read intelligence reports detailing rising nationalist societies and underground groups. His police tracked student circles and clergy stirring ethnic pride. But he saw no solution. The dual monarchy's very structure, two dominant nations ruling many, left no room for real inclusion. And so he waited. He granted occasional concessions, allowed carefully controlled local autonomy, or shuffled ministers, but nothing fundamental changed. By the 1890s, the empire was a paradox. Modern in technology, archaic in politics, confident in appearances, hollow at its core. Internationally, Austria-Hungary appeared stable. Diplomats praised its central location in Europe as a guarantee of peace. Tourists flocked to its opera houses and spas. Investors poured money into its industries. But behind the scenes, alliances were shifting, and the empire's internal divisions were known to every foreign intelligence service. This sense of outward stability was bolstered by Austria-Hungary's web of alliances. After years of estrangement, Franz Josef's empire entered the League of the Three Emperors with Germany and Russia, and later solidified ties with Germany in the Dual Alliance, expanding into the Triple Alliance with Italy. These pacts gave Austria-Hungary a sense of security on the European stage, discouraging rivals, and allowing the emperor and his ministers to shift focus inward, pouring resources into railways, factories, and glittering boulevards instead of endless wars, though even its allies watched with concern. Germany saw Austria-Hungary as a crucial partner, but one increasingly paralyzed by its internal contradictions. Russia eyed the empire's Slavic populations as a source of potential allies or future conflict. Franz Josef kept to his daily routines, rising before dawn, signing documents, reading dispatches, reviewing troops. He never stopped working, but his work could no longer keep up with a changing world. The emperor's personal life reflected the same pattern, grand ceremonies masking private loneliness. His marriage with Empress Elizabeth, Sisi, was strained. His heir, Crown Prince Rudolf, grew up alienated from his father, frustrated with the empire's stagnation and attracted to radical ideas. Yet through it all, Austria-Hungary survived because it looked strong. And as long as it looked strong, many believed it was. But illusions don't last forever. Franz Josef's constancy was both the empire's anchor and its greatest weakness. But as Austria-Hungary's economic boom papered over its political cracks, new tragedies loomed in Franz Josef's own family, tragedies that would shake him to his core. In our next episode, The Mailing Incident, Crown Prince Rudolf's tragic death, we step into the imperial family's most haunting chapter, where the bright future of the empire died alongside its troubled heir, casting an even darker shadow over Franz Josef's reign. This is Road to Destruction, The World Wars.